Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Oh my God, it's been so long. This is Carmela, and I am now the host of Carmela's Rasslin Radio Relived. For those of you who know me, you know that I did Rasslin Radio about 40 years ago. Okay. During that time, we came up with an idea to do a radio show about professional wrestling. To the best of my knowledge, I am the first woman ever to have a talk show on the radio about professional wrestling. It was decided around a kitchen table. It was myself, my husband, my ex husband, Paul, and Joel Goodhart, who was a very, 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 very powerful speaker. You know, he was the upfront guy. I wrote the shows. Paul had all the connections. So we had a great time doing this. We met a ton of wrestlers. We had a ton of stories, which we want to tell you all. My life in wrestling goes way back to when I was 6 years old. I started to go wrestling when I was six. My parents before me were heavily involved in professional wrestling from the time of Two-Ton Johnny Galenta, which was in the 50s. I remember my father telling me a story about him being at the arena, and this gentleman named Two-Ton Tony Galena was very good friends with my father, and he said to my father, he walked him over to a door, and he said, "You see that door right there?" He said, "That's where the decisions are made." And that, after that, is history. We started talking about what, we were going to do because we had all this background in wrestling. My family, they were always at my house, and, of course, back then it was a lot easier to do. So we decided that we wanted to do something. So we were actually able to make a connection to have a first radio show in Trenton, New Jersey. I believe the stations was WGGM or TTM, one of those. We were there for a short period of time. And then we were approached by a gentleman named Roger Crone, who worked for a then radio station called WDVT at 2nd and South in Philadelphia, which is where we were all from. And we were on Rasslin Radio. We created it. And we were on from 1985 to approximately 1989. We parted ways because I had a little girl and I wanted to go on with being a mom, kind of like Becky Lynch said to Asuka. And then Joel Goodhart went on his way to do his own promotions privately. He became successful, God bless him. And we remained friends through the years. Okay. So this is what I want to do. I want to have my own podcast, and I want to tell stories of my life when Rasslin Radio was a big thing, before Rasslin Radio, after Rasslin Radio. So I'm going to, at some point, have a lot of guests on. I'm very excited about that. We're picking guests from a long time ago. We're going old school with some stuff. So I have people lined up like Tom Brandy, Heidi Lee Morgan, Jose Luis Rivera, my friend Debbie Ferrante Rivera, who is the wife of the late Steve King, who was a very prominent wrestler in WWF at the time. She's also the mother of Elektra Lopez, very dear friend. I'm trying as hard as I can to pass the word of mouth to get as many wrestlers from back then as I can. Unfortunately, some of them have been long deceased. But their stories, there's so many stories. And that's what I want to share with you. I want to restart. I want to redo. I want to let you listen to some of our old tapes, talk about it. I'm going to give you my email address so that you can write to me and you can ask me questions. You can make comments. You can come up with suggestions, which I would love. My email address is 316, because today is day 316. It's 316 Carmela with one L at gmail.com. I'm going to repeat that again, 316 Carmela at gmail.com. Please feel free at any point. We're going to start out by trying to have a podcast every week. You can reach the podcast. We're going to go up on SoundCloud. You can reach the podcast by going on to any podcast platforms that you usually go on. We're going to try really hard to get it on to some of the same podcasts that you listen to on their platforms as well. Now, today, I have two people with me who are very integral, very important in my life. The first is, his name is Brian Tramel. Many years ago, as well as having the radio show and promotions that we did in Squared Circle and all that, we had a fan club. Brian, we met through the fan club. We had a lot of people. We had a great time. We had luncheons. We had dinners. We had events. We took a whole plane load of people to Memphis to go play softball with Jerry the King Lawler. And we did, I think it was 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. And then from there, we went and saw wrestling in Memphis. We went to Nashville, and we actually were on Jerry Lawler's talk show. So everything was going so well back then. And, time goes by, things change, things happen, but we're back. I'm back, and I'd like to stay that way. So right now, I'm going to invite Brian to come on with me. And I think he's there. Are you there, Brian?
Hey.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Carmela, can you see me now?
I sure can. I
All
can
right,
see you. You look
move me
handsome.
over because I feel weird talking to the wall. I want to.
All right, I'm going to move you over, honey. Over here. There you go.
If you're listening to the audio version of this, and I say this all the time on my podcast, why go watch the video version? We do all kinds of fun stuff on the video version.
We sure do. This is my first time in 40 years. I'm so excited.
I can tell. We have been talking about doing this for a few weeks now, or a few months now. And I know you mentioned this. Look, I start talking because I'm going to start asking you questions now.
Okay.
This is my interview. And I've been doing a podcast for 7 years. It's called stspod.club. We do 2 episodes a week. And we interviewed you a few years back. And was excited about it. We got a lot of listens for it. And then, you came up with the idea, hey, let's take these old. And I'm just shocked that we still have those. That shocked me. Cassette Wrestling News, I talked to you about that. Cassette Wrestling News was a thing that he mailed out. Stone Cold called it the first ever podcast because that's what he did with the cassette. And we started doing that. I've got a bunch over here on the shelf. It's a long process, but was excited that you still had some. And Matt, who's helping us, says he already has listened to the episode with Brian Tramel back in the 80s there.
Yes, he did. As a matter of fact, God bless him. I was just going to mention him. He literally, as I always say, pulled me out of the ashes. He loves restoring old stuff. So he went on YouTube, on the internet.
Wait, Carmel. If he's going to restore old stuff, he might as well restore me.
I think he needs to restore me first, Brian. Okay. So anyway, he went on the internet and he found like 20 minutes of Rasslin Radio. And he contacted me, actually. And he sent a letter to something called Lost Fans, I believe it is. And he explained everything about our show. And then, he said to me, I can digitalize your tapes. Well, I'm very protective of these tapes. And I had told everybody, you can't touch them, you can't say them, you can't have them. But here they're sitting under my bureau for 40 years. And I didn't even know that cassette tapes could be digitalized.
Right.
Anyway, he encouraged me to do this. I spoke to my children about it. And we decided to let him do it. And then I came up with this podcast idea and said, what the heck, right? So God bless Matt. He's here. He's outside right now. And I'm very excited, very happy because we're going to do a part of that. And it's all going to be together. And Brian, I have you on here today because we're going to do another show as well with you. With the Memphis thing, but I just want to give a little taste, a little idea to the people of what it was like.
Well, me and you love to talk, so it'd be easy to take up a little bit of time here. But
that right.
Something you said during your intro, and I know you've said this to me a couple of times. You've talked about them being over at your house and you feeding wrestlers and stuff. I didn't even know that, and you probably said on my podcast, but when you said your parents were involved in wrestling, that just hit something in my brain. I was like, no, I don't remember her saying that. So
yeah, as a matter of fact, we were very close friends with roller derby players and wrestlers because the 45th and Market, the old arena, is where we went. And I became my childhood hero in roller derby was Judy Arnold. And I had the luck and the blessing of meeting her not too long ago. And we became very good friends. But
oh, wow.
Yeah, there was a ton of stuff that we did back then with wrestling. And I would like to tell you the very first wrestlers we ever had at our house, but I don't know if I should say that now or if I should wait for another week. What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah,
maybe just throw one story.
Go ahead, tease it. Let people know who it was.
Okay. Years ago, it was so easy to get to a wrestler. Today, it's like getting to the president's easier. Okay. Well, years ago, we would go to the matches and my parents and I, we all spoke Italian, and there were a lot of immigrant wrestlers, and these wrestlers came out. Back then, you had to get your own train, your own hotel, no agents, nobody helping you, nothing. So my father was talking to several of these people, just chatting, and a wrestler who was then, his real name is Antonio Pugliese, but he was then called Tony Parisi. He and then was Louis Cerdan, real name Gino Brito, didn't have anywhere to go. They didn't know anything about the area. So my mom and dad said, "Oh, why don't you come to our house? I'll cook." That's the big thing with us. I'll cook,
Right,
So they
right,
came,
right.
we took them to our house that night. The two of them came in our house. We sat there. My mother made pasta at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, they start singing opera. Okay. Full blown
Okay.
opera, Brian. Unbelievable. The whole neighborhood practically woke up because the windows were open. It was in the summertime. And we had half the neighborhood in by the end of the night. It was amazing. And these are what a lot of the stories that I have to tell involve. I was just a little kid. And, Dominic DiNucci, God bless him, who is now, rest in peace, he's now passed. He used to tell everybody all the time. I met him when I was 12. And he said, "Oh, he goes, I meet to her when she's so little, she still had snot come out of her nose, and that's how far back we go, But yeah, I have a ton of stories, Brian. I can't wait.
That's awesome to think that. I think it's funny that you said the Italian and we're going to feed everybody kind of thing. That's like a Southern thing too, which is really
Yeah.
funny. That we always when we get the family together, no matter if it's a family reunion or if it's just, hey, you want to come to the house, you come to the house to eat. And
Always.
we fix something different, or we fix the same comfortable food that you always used to eating, and it's really funny because that just some kind of bizarreness there with the Italians and the Southern
I'm
people.
telling you, it's crazy because right now, today, when we're done this, my daughter and I are making big ziti for everybody because it's just what we do. You
Right,
come
right,
here and you
right. It's
eat,
just
and
yeah,
and we
yeah.
love it. We love it, and it's
Okay, I got a question. I know this
yes.
has
Go ahead.
nothing to do with wrestling, so I'm gonna ask you a question about
But
Italian food. All right, real
okay,
quick.
shoot.
Do you eat the leftovers?
Always,
Okay, all right. We
always.
do that too.
Always leftovers stay a couple of days.
Yeah,
Always,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I was taught you eat pretty much anything that's thrown at you at that point. But yeah, we do because sometimes it's better the next day.
Right, that's the way
Um,
we. So tell me, with all these guys coming in, and some of the names I'm familiar with, some of them I'm not, because if most people listening to this, they'll probably know. Some of them will, some of them will not. I grew up in the Memphis area.
mhm.
Graduated in '85, so during high school '78, during that, I think I started '78 through high school. I was huge Memphis wrestling fan, and it's how I met with you. Um, but who do you think of all the guys that came through your house and that you met was the most famous, the most recognized? That if you said that name, everyone would know him.
I would have to say it would have to be um, Andre the Giant, Ivan Putski, Chief J Strongbow. More time to think. That's about it. Maybe Bruno. You know, but to us, they weren't these huge icons. They were just people, just friends.
Right. Well, I've told this a million times on my podcast. It's kind of the opposite for me because I watched wrestling for so long and then become friends with them. So it was almost. I remember the first time I sat down with Dutch Mantel. He came to my house and sat down in a chair and said, he's going to sit there till wrestling starts at night. And here's a guy I've been watching on TV forever, same thing. But it was like I was hanging out with, I don't know, Gilligan's Island or something. That's the way I felt. But then after, I hung out with The Undertaker, Paul Heyman, you name it. And it's like, now no one could be like, I don't know who I would meet where I would be starstruck. Maybe The Rock, but that helped me, helped me
Yeah.
with that. I was never starstruck. I remember meeting Elegante and shaking his hand and a bunch of guys, and my friends were like, "Well, you met Elegante. You must have been starstruck with him." And I was like, "He wasn't that big." I put it over like he wasn't that big. And here's a huge. So I want to ask you: did Andre eat a lot?
Actually, believe it or not, and as much as I God, I love that man. He was a wonderful man. He did eat a good bit, but unfortunately, it got to a point where he drank more than he ate.
Oh,
You know,
there we go. Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
but he was an extremely large man. When I first met him in person, I got to be honest. I mean, I'm like 5'2" now, maybe I'm 5 foot, and he almost scared me at one point. And my
Oh, yeah, I
mother,
bet. I bet.
yeah, and
Yeah,
my
yeah.
mother was shorter than me. I was going to say not younger, but and we were devastated. But when we ate dinner together, he would hold the fork like this instead of like we hold it like this, and his hand covered the entire fork, like you couldn't see the
Right.
fork
I
anymore.
remember there's a famous picture of Andre holding a regular sized 12
Can of
ounce
beer,
can.
yeah.
And you all you see is it just looks like a little tiny can. I'm going to ask a question. You can edit this out if you want to, but
I
how did
already know what
Andre
you're going
use
to
the
ask.
bathroom? How did he use the bathroom?
I wasn't there with him. I didn't go in. He did. I mean, like everybody else does. I wasn't in there with him, so I
Woo,
don't
that
know.
had to be.
But yeah, but he and it's funny when he walked into a room, like how your door is
Right, right,
6 feet
right.
or whatever. He always had to go down,
Yeah.
and I saw that firsthand myself. He had a ring. He used to wear a pinky ring every once in a while, and I took that ring off his hand, and I wanted to try it on because I always thought I was cool. But it took me these 3 fingers. I had to go like that,
Oh,
and then I
wow.
put the
That's
ring
awesome.
on, and
Yeah,
it went
yeah.
down. It's unbelievable. And I'm going to tell you something else too. I took French in high school for 4 years, and then I studied it on records and stuff after that. And I used to write letters to him. We had a special spot where I used to send it, and he'd get his mail. And then he'd call me at like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning when I had to go to work the next day. And he would reread the letter to me that I wrote to him in French. And he would critique it and
Oh,
correct
that's
it.
awesome. That's
Yeah, and
awesome.
and we had a ball. It was amazing. We had so much fun doing that. And that's why like a lot of people don't realize that these wrestlers are people. They're just people. They
I
eat, they
think they
drink.
realize that a little bit more now with social media and all the shoot interviews that came out.
Yeah.
But during the time where even up to a certain the 2000s maybe before the internet become really popular, there was a mystique there that you just didn't. I don't know. You just couldn't get to know them. But like you said here, sitting on my couch, the Undertaker, and who didn't even have one tattoo at the time, and Dutch Mantel sitting there, and us just talking, and you
Yeah.
realize real quick, and
They're just
not
like
that
us.
but they're just people. They
Yeah.
have the same thing. They want to be paid.
Exactly.
They
It's a job.
they want to eat. They want to sleep, and and that's. I had an apartment in Jonesboro, which was one of their spot towns. So, and I had a couch. So, if anybody wanted to just instead of driving all the way back to Nashville, and a lot of the guys, I mean, and they knew I didn't party, I didn't do all that stuff.
Yeah.
So they could come in, they could lay on the couch, and they could leave on their own. See you later, bye. If nothing's stolen, they could just keep doing that over and over. And we talked to Owen Hart did that too.
Yeah.
Um, when we had one of our first meetings, we talked about Owen had a person in every town, the major cities where he stayed the night. And I remember, I think it was Mick Foley that said that, it was because he was cheap. He didn't like to spend his money, but he
Oh.
got a home cooked meal. It's
Yeah.
smart, really, a home cooked meal, and was able to sleep on somebody's couch or
Mhm.
extra bedroom.
Well, see, with us, it was like that, but us, it was like long term. Like Ivan Putski stayed at my house one time. He was there many times, but he stayed at my house one time for an entire week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, ate there, slept there, showered there, all that. And in turn, okay, like we fed him, we did it, and he always like took us out to eat, and he always let us in for free or got us front row seats or whatever. He was very kind. I mean, to us, they were all very kind. And it's funny we're talking about this because I have a friend sitting right here next to me. Her name is Jeannie. She's a very, very dear friend to me rather, who doesn't want to be on camera. So she's just talking the microphone. But she's got a few of her own stories. She lived with me for a while as well. A lot of people did. And she and Paul, I believe it was, and myself went down to Dominic DeNucci's wrestling school that he had at the time, where he trained Mick Foley. He trained, what was his name? Shane Douglas. Oh my God, I forgot. Shane Douglas. And we went, and Dominic actually, I'm going to put her into the microphone here in a second, and I'm going to let her tell you the story of what Dominic did to her. We had a great time. But Jeannie, you're on, kid.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hey.
Hey. Yeah, no, Dominic was almost a fixture at Carmela's house. He was so wonderful.
Were you a wrestling fan, though? Was you a wrestling
I was.
fan?
That's
Okay,
how
okay.
I met Carmela. I met Carmela at her squared circle wrestling store at the old I-95 marketplace.
Right.
And she had Bruno Sammartino and Dominic DeNucci as guests, signing autographs and meeting the fans. And that's when I met her and Paul and Joel and Dominic and, everybody. And because I didn't live that far away, I would, drive up there every weekend. The store was only open on weekends. And we became friends. Carmela, as always, such a amazing human being.
Oh, I paid her to say that.
Got us, come over to the house and, and I fell in love with her daughter and, everything. And then she asked me to, help out at the store, work at the store so she could be with her daughter. And I did. And at one point, Dominic, he had already had that wrestling school. We went up there and he wanted to train me to be a professional wrestler. So when we got to the school, he was training. And then when the training was over, he used to call, he called everybody kid, get in the ring. And I was like, uh-oh. And I got in the ring and he told one of his students, suplex her.
Oh, wow.
And
just like that with no training. Nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's scary.
And yeah. And he said, but not a standing suplex, a snap suplex. So all I could think of was, the British Bulldogs.
That's what I was thinking right there.
Right?
When you said now, I thought Dynamite Kid. There you go.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, I'm going home with a dislocated something, and I did it. I screamed as I went up and over. And he said, you did it wrong. Do it again. And I said, what do you mean? I went up, I went over, I landed on my back. What are you talking about? I did it wrong. And he said, you landed with your legs completely straight out. You have to land with your knees bent so your feet hit first, or else you're going to have back problems. And I was like, Dominic, I love you. I'm not going to sue you. Don't worry. I'm good. He would not let me out of the ring until I did it again. And I knew what he was doing. He was trying to get me to get the bug so I would become a professional wrestler. And even though it did, I wanted to do more and learn more. I was like, no, I can't. I just can't do it. I can't do it. Back then, women were really not.
But ultimately, you became a valet for our promotions.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Were you in Memphis with us?
Yes.
Okay. We'll wait and talk about that when we talk about the Memphis.
We're going to let her tell the valet story another
Yeah,
time, too.
Yeah.
That's got a whole
I
bunch
got a
of stuff
question
with
with what she said real quick for you,
Right.
Carmela, was what did the guys like Bruno and what did they charge? Bruno was a effing legend. And what did he charge to come do autographs at your wrestling radios at the Squared Circle?
Back then?
Yeah,
okay,
I mean, even back then.
it's like $500, maybe.
Oh, wow.
And because like Dominic didn't charge us anything.
Right,
Because how close we were.
He
But
ate all
Bruno
the time.
yeah, we also had J.J. Dillon. I mean, we had, as a matter of fact, I wanted to say something too. I can't believe we're already into like 47 minutes here. But Virgil, God rest his soul, another wonderful dear friend. He wrestled for us when we had our promotions. And his name is Mike Jones. And we had him and Tom Brandy. I just got to tell you this quick story. We got them different colored tuxedos. Virgil had a white tuxedo with a white top hat, cane, gloves, and Tom Brandy wore the black. And we called them Ebony and Ivory. And they were our tag team. And we had such fun with them. As a matter of fact, Tom Brandy's going to be a guest at some point. But, I feel so bad that a lot of the wrestlers have passed. There's so many things that I wish that we could have them come on and talk about, which is why I'm trying to get as many of the older wrestlers that are still alive to come and talk. I'm looking for Johnny Rods. I'm looking for Manny Soto. Like I said, we're going to have Jose Luis Rivera. We're doing the best we can to get a lot of the old ones. I have a friend who's going to try and get Shane Douglas. We're going to try and get Mick Foley. We're just going to try. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if any of you know any wrestlers and you want to send them to us, more than welcome to do so. That includes you, Brian.
Right. That's what we're going to try to do. We talked
Yep.
about that when we get to the Memphis part of the squared circle. How many squared circle people? Because this was also, I still have friends, which is crazy. I have friends from the squared circle. I was in Memphis. You were in Jersey. That are lifelong friends. Jamie Ward being one of them. Me and Jamie have been friends in Facebook. Kind of got people back together kind of thing. But Jamie was one of them. I was friends with, me and him both friends with the late Dennis Carluzzo, which was part of the trip and everything. But it's crazy that how many people did you actually have part of the Square Circle fan club?
If I'm not mistaken, okay, we had probably about what, GD, 40, 50 at least?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were actually able to almost fill a whole plane to bring to Memphis. So we had that. And another thing that I had put on Facebook about the Fargo strut, but Jackie Fargo did that little walk thing,
right,
the wrestlers do. The wrestlers do it to this day. We had a thing and Jerry Lawler was our speaker, our guest host, and he and Joel and Paul, and remember Franny Emsley, he's also deceased, God bless him, did the Fargo strut for us. We actually had a contest as to who won that and whatever. But a whole bunch of us went out to Memphis. We actually played softball with Jerry and his team. I think we played 2 or 3 times.
Twice. That I remember of. And then some kid got his head shaved.
Yes, Franny. That was Franny.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I
and
remember
Paul,
him
I cannot believe Paul actually played. Paul actually played softball. I almost like fainted when I saw that. Because I couldn't get Paul at home to pick up a cup. But he played softball for Jerry Lawler, and that was like we were at Jerry Lawler's house when we were there too. Beautiful home. And like I said, we had a great time. We always had a great time. And I miss those times. And that's why I do believe that even if we have younger viewers or younger people who like wrestling, I do believe that hearing stories and hearing about how, wrestlers back then had to actually suffer a lot more and get their own stuff and do their own things and everything, I think it'll give them a more of an appreciation for what the wrestlers are like or what it's like. And if they ever wanted to get involved, there's I was going to bring my daughter down to the Samoans wrestling school. She wanted to be a wrestler for a while, which is where Elektra Lopez learned to become a wrestler for the Samoans. There's a lot of different ones all over the place. Ivan Putski had a wrestling school. He trained Booker T. A few other people that I just don't know off the top of my head right now. But there's so many things that can be done. There's so much going on. And we just have memories that are priceless. And getting them recorded now and being able to archive them is what's important to me. Like I said on Facebook, I'm not in competition with anybody. I'm not trying to beat anybody, not doing anything like that. I just want to talk. I just want to talk to the people. I want to see my friends again. Maybe have another fan club.
That's generally what I did to start the podcast. It was some free time and I needed to do it. And it also is one of those things, when we're both dead and gone, this will still be there. It really will. More people will listen to the podcast the day I die than they did the day before, probably. But
you've become an influencer, Brian, over the years, I think, because you told me, if I'm not mistaken, that you've had over 2 million views or 2 million listeners. Am I mistaken on that?
Yes, that's what we had for last year too.
Absolutely.
The whole, which is not. I still say it's not a lot, but it is a lot. The main podcasters have a lot more than me when it comes to YouTube and everything like that. But we're able to get corporate sponsors, local sponsors, people like that. And it's been a part of, Memphis Wrestling is back. It's been back
Absolutely.
for 160 episodes. And so it's part of that. I mean, that's the first time I've been actually involved in the product and giving them content. I provide content for Memphis Wrestling, but it's because of what we're doing right here. And this was not, you weren't able to do anything like this 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. There's so
No.
much software that makes everything easy.
Yes.
And you're able to do what I call, it's almost like a radio show. My partner says, Lance Levine, he says, I always wanted to be a DJ. Man, you gave me an opportunity to do a radio show. And that's what I feel like it's a radio show the way we do the advertising, we do the commercials come in the middle. Sometimes we talk about something, right there on the show. So that it's just like old time radio.
Yeah.
Uh, I, I think you're going to have all of us that were there, but you're also going to have these people who are listening, and you may be listening to this on my feed. If you're listening to my feed, that's fine. I know it's being on my feed. I have to be the first guest. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But you have so many people that when you, there is a line of people that do not watch the current product. There really
Right.
is. I've never understood that because I always kept up with the business from when I found out about the kayfabe sheets and so forth and so on. I mean, internet, I always keep up with the business. There's been lapse times where I wouldn't watch it and just read the kayfabe sheet, or vice versa, watch it, not read the sheets. But it's so great to be a fan now, where we can do something like this, or
Yeah.
you can watch. I recently told, by the way, episode 800 we recorded a few weeks back about a story where I was upset with my friend's dad because he made us turn off Flair versus Lawler
Oh boy.
on TV because he didn't want to, watch that fake crap. He didn't want that on his television. So he turns it off, and here I am. I'm about to cry because it's Flair against Lawler. And I can watch that as many times as I want today. I never knew that. But
Exactly.
it makes, and if you don't like the product and you're still a wrestling fan, just watch the old stuff. Just find you an independent that
Yeah.
you can still be a wrestling fan. And that's the kind of people we really want to listen to what you're doing, is because you got stories. Well, Carmela, you got stories that no one has heard. This is not, you know, you might hear, and I'm not putting down any of the guys I'm fixing to mention, but you might hear Mick Foley talk about something on his podcast, and then Eric Bischoff will talk about the same thing, and then we'll have somebody else talk about. They're all talking about the same thing, but this
Right.
is going to be a little bit more personal because they were in your house and you knew things, that other people didn't know.
Well, understand something too. Being a woman, I guess I went from being so little, and hanging out with them sometimes in the back. Like in the back, Spiros Arion loved me when I was a kid. Okay. He used to take me by the hand and walk me all around the back. We used to sit outside the arena until his match came. Then he'd bring me back to my mother, because you could do it back then. Then when my mother, God bless her, she passed away when I was only 20. So at that point, I didn't want to stop what she was doing. So I started talking to the wrestlers and cooking and this and that. Then I started dating them. I got older, I started dating a few of them. I did this, I did that. Stories about Pedro Morales, stories about, there's so many stories, my God. But it made me feel good because, again, like Bruno and Dominic came to my school to pick me up a couple of times. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And I recently talked to my 7th grade teacher, who is, over 70 years old, and I'm 66 now. And he brought it up to me. He said, oh my God, I remember that time they came and picked you up from school. He said, I opened the door and there were these 2 big guys standing there saying, we came to get Carmela. And I just said, oh, okay, whatever, But again, like you said, it's a personal issue. It's more personal than, oh, I met so-and-so, or, oh, whatever. To have an actual engagement as far as a relationship of some kind with them is amazing. In the middle of the night, watching TV together, telling stories, reading books. Neat stuff that we did together, traveling with them. I traveled to Connecticut with Jerry Lawler. I did a lot of stuff, and there was a lot of stuff that Jeannie did. There was a lot of stuff that we enjoy to this very day. So I figure, why not talk about it? Because
I love that. I'm sitting here. I had interviewed downtown Bruno, Harvey Whippleman, a few months back, and I've known Bruno forever.
Right.
But I asked him some of the oddest questions. Why were you sitting at the library? I mean, why was you sitting at the bookstore in the Memphis Mall reading books at a certain time? And he came up with this whole story. He did this because he didn't have anywhere else to go. And before they left for Nashville, he wanted to get him something to eat and read. And I
Yeah.
thought that he's never been asked that question before. And it's one of those things where,
Right.
I could tell you what brand of chew that Dutch Mantel wanted, or what was on
Isn't that-
Undertaker's pizza. What was
Isn't
on his
that
pizza?
crazy? Yeah, and it's a different thing than other people have. And like when I was doing it, okay, again, now I still talk to a lot of the older wrestlers, but when I was doing that, like it puts you in a different light for today. Yeah, you see them on TV, and if you bump into them, it's hi, how are you? But the chances of actually having that interaction with them today is next to nothing. It's next to none. It's impossible.
I talked to Paul about, I guess this is about 10 years ago, and we had a nice conversation. But I mean, being able to just say, hey, now I would never be able to reach, get to talk to him or anything like that. And the funny thing is, since the Undertaker went to WWE, I've never talked to him. So it's just one of those things where I would love, say, hey, just you can go to one of his shows for $500, but I
exactly
not what I want to do. So
yeah, and back then it was like, oh, Celeste. My mother's name was Celeste. My father's name was Florindo. Hey, they're here. Come in the back. Right, in the back.
Well, that's what they like. They don't, it's just like me. I didn't run around and say, can I get your autograph? I didn't call all my friends and say, can you believe who's here? Blah, blah, blah. You just never done that.
No, never. And I was never what they call, and I hate to say this, a ring rat, anything like that. I'm sorry to say it, but I never was. I went to the matches. If I went with a wrestler, I left with the wrestler. When I went, I never, ever, bought them stuff and went and got their food. And no, that wasn't happening. I saw a lot of the girls did do that, but I didn't. And I was never going to do that. But it was happy that we were happy and it was fine. Do you remember that empty arena match with Terry Funk?
Yeah.
And I think it was Jerry Lawler.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you don't never see anything like that now. You can download that too. I've just thought of it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you can watch as many times as you want to.
That on YouTube, was an amazing match. I would watch that over and over again.
Things like that is just, and to me, I like the old stuff, but I like the new stuff too. So I think, I have my opinion. I don't think some of the matches can ever be topped. I still like the current wrestlers.
I do.
But I like a lot of, something just recently, when Mercedes Moné came out the other night, the crowd chanting and all. I just love stuff like that. So
and the good thing about it is now they call her CEO.
Yes.
Whatever. They don't bring her regular name in or her old name in or whatever, which is nice. And it's a lot of respect. And I think that's important. I'm going to talk to Jeannie again real quick.
All right.
Jeannie's going to do some shows with me, just she and I. What we're going to do at some point, we're going to pick out some things in some of our old Rasslin Radio tapes. Like we have our one tape talked about when Magnum TA had his really bad accident. We're going to put it on and we're going to let you listen to it. With maybe a little, like Brian suggested, a little intro, little exit, whatever. And then we're going to have you think about it for a while or listen to it a couple of times. And then the following week, maybe answer questions on it or something like that. And Jeannie, is there anything in particular you would like to maybe find again on the tapes that we did from Rasslin Radio?
My memory is so bad.
I think you have a really good friend that you may want to bring on too.
Yes. The one thing, I'm very good friends. I love him more than life. Frank Chili. I don't know if you knew.
I do. Yeah.
Frank Chili. Yeah.
Very good, dear friend of mine now. And back then as well. But
that's great.
We lost contact for like 30 years and then got back together. And now we're very good friends. So I know he's going to be.
And he was who?
Frankie the Thumper.
That's right.
Thumper. He was our little mafioso guy. Yeah, Frankie the Thumper.
He was one of Carlos.
Dennis's.
Him.
Yeah. They had. We had great
Jeannie,
shows
I got a question for you.
Sure.
since you were around them all the time, tell me. And I always ask this to my guests. And Carmela, you can answer this. And I want you to. I don't want you to kayfabe people on this. Okay.
Okay.
Was there ever a guy, a wrestler that, what do they say? We shouldn't meet our idols, or we shouldn't. That was just a total ass to you.
Go ahead, Jeannie. I know exactly who you're going to
Who?
say.
Go ahead. Come
Go
on.
ahead.
You got to tell stuff like that on this podcast. We got to get some listeners.
Hector Guerrero.
Oh,
I knew she was going to say that. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Total ass, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes these wrestlers act the way they do in the ring outside the ring.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I've dealt with a few of them myself, so.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
was
was
terrible.
terrible, horrible. And in my opinion and in my experience with him,
Yeah.
Did he work up there for y'all or something? Or how did
No.
Not for us in particular, but he was on the East Coast. Yeah. He was,
Yeah.
you know,
There was an incident in Baltimore.
yeah.
I had traveled down with some friends just to go to one of the Baltimore shows. And he's not a nice man.
No, very disrespectful. He
Yes.
was. I'm sorry.
What about you, Carmela? You hung around a lot of them. So.
I've been around a lot of people. Again, I'm sure you have heard Shawn Michaels say he was not always a nice man.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I knew that Shawn Michaels, who was not always a nice man. Again, a lot of wrestlers back then had their demons. A lot of wrestlers had terrible lives. A lot of wrestlers had drinking issues. A lot of wrestlers had drug issues. A lot of wrestlers had steroid issues, and we'll go into that down the road too. But Shawn Michaels was a young kid coming up, and he thought that he was all that and a bag of chips, and didn't care about letting other people know it. I mean, now he's a saint. Okay, God bless him. But everybody has their moments. I mean, there was a time when I wasn't the type of person I am today.
What?
I know, man. I had a couple bad times too, but yeah, there was a few, and I remember. I'm going to tell you this one story real quick. There was a time when we were at the Marriott Hotel in Philadelphia, and my Celeste was about maybe 2 years old, maybe a little more. And I was walking her into the diner. We were going to go have breakfast, and Ric Flair was about a couple tables over. Okay. And he just, I guess, woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day. He just did not look like he wanted to be bothered by anybody. And my daughter saw him, and my daughter, when she was little, used to be able to do imitations of the wrestler.
Yeah.
Like Jim Garvey, she'd go like this with her little hands and, that kind of stuff. So she saw Ric Flair and she flipped, okay? And I knew he wasn't going to be receptive to her. I just knew it, okay? So I said to her out loud enough for him to hear it. I said, "Don't worry, honey. We're going to ask him if it's okay for you to say hello, and he's going to say yes." And I looked at him, and then I looked over at him, and he just nodded his head. And I took her over for a minute, and he was very nice to her at that point. Had we just gone over and seen Ric Flair on a bad day, I don't know. I don't know what would have happened. But I never, again, that's why I never went out of my way to be one of those people. If a wrestler wanted, even Dominic, I love Dominic to death, but down at the Hamburg Arena, he would say to me, "Go get me a cup of coffee." And I'm like, no. And if I'm going to go get you a cup of coffee, you're paying for me to get a cup of coffee. You're paying for your own.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for anything, And I used to cut wrestlers' hair in the back of the arenas years ago, and they paid me to cut their hair. That was a service. I didn't do anything for nothing.
No, there was, no one.
No, you have to, if you want respect, you have to earn it. You have to demand it. You have to give it. And
so funny. When we would eat pizza at my place, there was no way was I paying for it. We always split the cost. It was never, I mean, those guys weren't used to being able to, they got free water or a soda or something that.
Yeah.
But that was nice of them and that's the thing people don't understand, that the life on the road, which is still a lot of guys do a lot of dates. Some of those AEW guys don't do the dates that most would not understand the dates of a 30 days on the road, no matter what they were doing, kind of thing. And they just loved, what they liked was even just to talk.
Yeah.
I had the kayfabe sheet. Let me see the sheet. There's there's the kayfabe guy again. That's what they would call me, kayfabe guy. And what are you doing? And I remember Bill Dundee would treat me like crap the whole time I was in the dressing room with him. But when he got ready to leave, every time he would come over to me, shake my hand, and say, "We'll see you next time." And I'd be like, "Why can't you be nice to me all the time?"
Not in front of the other wrestlers. Well, I think maybe we should explain what kayfabe is. Kayfabe is still going on sometimes today, but back then, a good guy was never talked to a bad guy. A bad guy was never around a good guy. They actually even stayed in separate hotels. They stayed in separate dressing rooms. They came out of different parts of the arena. And if you were friends with a bad guy, the good guy didn't talk to you. If you were friends with the good guy, the bad guy didn't talk to you. And you didn't talk like, say, well, yeah, I had dinner with.
And you didn't arrive. Here's something so weird. I did independence in this area as a manager. And my two guys that I managed, I also helped two other guys get dates on other shows. So they were baby faces, and my guys were heels. But we would sometimes get mixed up when we were driving. I'd have one of the baby faces, I'd have one of the heels, and it'd be me. So before we came to the arena, we had a place we stopped almost everyone. It was just like someone's house most of the time, and we just switched everybody up. You arrived at the arena as a heel with the heel people, and if you wanted to ride with the other guys, you switch it up as you get going. So never in a convenience store with each other, never, none of that stuff.
No.
And I thought that was great the way it's being that illusion, and it can't. People say, "Well, kayfabe's just no, it can't happen now." There's too much. The internet changed the wrestling business so much. It's just the same technology. Let's talk. First, it was television. Television changed the wrestling business. Then it was. I really think there was a part there where it was, cable television really changed the business, and then the VHSs, and you can make money on that. You can actually make money on a pay-per-view that's already aired and stuff like that. Then we had this boom of the internet, and I think we had another boom kind of with what we're doing right here with I don't know if everybody does a podcast now. Everybody, Carmela. Not just wrestling business, but it's become a normal thing for comedians, wrestlers, just people that want to talk like me. I mean, it's one of those things where you just want to get with people, sit down and talk. I love, and I know I'm putting the podcast over because it is your first podcast, but I really think it's going to be fun and interesting to be something. I got a secret for you. I don't listen to wrestling podcasts. So
I'm going to be the first one, right?
If I put you on, I listen to clips every once in a while. But one of the reasons why is because I'm in it so much. I put about 35 hours a week into my podcast. It sounds like a lot, but it's just The Rock has some quote, and I know I'm paraphrasing this, but if you're going to give the man 40 hours where I work, why aren't you giving yourself 40 hours for your passion? And that's the way I feel about it. But it's this will be here, be a record of what you did for your kids, for your grandkids, their kids, blah, blah, blah. Even after you're gone, they're going to be on the internet. So,
and that's what I wanted. That's all I wanted, and I work for law enforcement, and, I hear all the time, these guys come in and the girls come in oh, my dad used to watch wrestling. Oh, my grandfather used to watch wrestling. Reminds me how old I am, of course. But, and I'll tell them if their parents or grandparents are still alive or whatever, have them listen, because maybe, we're trying. We're really trying to do something good here as far as bringing back some old stuff. And, a lot of people don't watch current wrestling because the old stuff isn't like it used to be anymore. It's not like
some people don't. It's the same thing with even with TV shows and you name it. People they remember stuff. Usually, we do a show called "Was It Really That Good?" On my stream, and what we do is we'll watch like an old world class show, and you watch it and you go, "Oh God, I remember this." I remember this so much. It was so much better.
I know.
And huge Von Erich fan, but when you watch it, it's like they were really hitting it. They weren't working, they were hitting it, and you go, oh, it really wasn't that good. Now,
Yeah,
sometimes we do run into people or things that were just so good, could work these days, but people remember stuff so much fonder than
they
it
do.
is.
They do.
And that's why you have that. You mentioned it earlier, Lat Span. By the way, we got to give him credit too. He listened to the podcast with me and you, and that's how he started hunting for you. So
Yeah,
that's
he did. I mean, let me tell you, I got to give Matt 100% props about this because God bless him. Like I said, if he didn't pull me out, I had kind of given up, and like when he said to me, why? He said, why don't you put it up, at least archive the tapes, if nothing else? And like I said, then when I discussed it with my friends, with Jeannie, with my children, everybody was like, why not? I mean, you love doing it. You love wrestling. It's just a passion, Why not just do it? Who cares? So I said, okay. And thanks to you, God bless you. And Matt, God bless him. He's going to come in after we're done. Um,
Yeah,
this was possible.
you're gonna find where you look so forward to that hour that you record, and if you're not looking forward to it, and it's becoming a dread, don't do it. That's my
Exactly.
best podcast advice. I get too busy sometimes.
Yeah.
My May's called Memphis in May, and we do just Memphis area guys or bring a legend on or something like that. And I'll do 12 or 13 episodes that month, and I'm just like, I'm done with this. I'm done with this. But
Yeah,
then
you do a lot. You do a lot, Brian.
I do a lot of social media too, and then when I have a show, I'm looking forward to being with my friend Lance, and then after the show is done, I have this thing where I do that went really well. Like we're having a great time today.
Oh, yeah, you can
This is
feel
going to
it.
be good, but you do have those days where you go, man, crap, that really didn't feel good. I missed all the spots. I really wanted to say something
Yeah.
and blah blah blah. It's that old thing, where you somebody says something smart to you and you don't say anything till the next day, and you look in the mirror and you you say it smart to them in the
Yeah,
mirror.
why didn't I
Oh, I
say
could
it?
have,
Yeah, I could have
yeah,
said
yeah.
that. Well, it's
George
funny.
Costanza.
I
So
was
yeah,
telling Jeannie and Matt, and I think I told you, my kids, when we were together with Joel and Paul, I wrote the radio show almost word for word for word for word, because we had to be careful. Again, back then it was different.
yeah.
Now I tried so hard to make bullet notes, to write down what I was going to say. I couldn't do it. But when I went to sleep, I dreamed of show after show after show. And this to me, I can't believe it's almost an hour. This to me,
Oh, I can't rest my mind. I have when I
uh-uh.
tell my wife, I said, well, that took me an hour and a half to get to sleep last night. She said, what? And we have this saying in our house. It's called building an empire. And I said, well, I was building an empire last night. I
There
was
you
trying
go.
my best. And
There
it
you
is one
go.
of those, you'll see, like I said, it is one of the things you look forward to. And the big advice I would give you is don't ever look at your numbers and say, well, only X amount of people listen to it.
Right.
Because I find every day, almost once a week, there's some site that is, they take your feed or they download your podcast and they put it up like it's theirs and you have no control over it, no anything. And I quit really worrying about it after the first few months. I was
Right.
like, and the wife says, she said, look, they're giving you exposure. You don't have to worry about it. If you got your sponsors and, in the future, you're going to have sponsors, blah, blah, blah. Don't, but yeah, you'll see a fluctuation and it's all about what you did in the, like this year, the year to date kind of thing. So
Right.
are you doing better? We've done better every year. I remember seeing something with Vince Russo one time who said he did podcasting um, for 7 years for free. And then finally he started making money at podcasting. And so it's just one of those things. It's what they say, 3 to 5 years for a new business. It did happen to me during the year 6 that we started. We just exploded last year.
That's good.
But it was the constant, as you know, you're on my feed, 3, 4 things
Yeah,
a
you
day.
have to keep doing it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to come up with one more question because we're getting close to the end of
All
the
right,
hour.
sounds good.
Brian, if you had the opportunity, who would you want to see on my podcast?
Ooh, I would like to interview with you, probably
Okay.
Jerry the King.
That's on you.
I would really like to. I'll be talking to him in May, and we'll try to do that because my relationship with Lawler has been rocky at times,
Yeah.
just to say the least. But he was the reason I'm. You are the reason I met him. It's really strange, and I can't. And my memory is horrible. Jeannie said hers. Oh, mine's horrible too.
And I'm older than you, so
Well,
stop.
my deal is I have a problem putting stuff in order. Like I remember something I did, but I don't know if it came before or after. I get all confused, but
Right.
somehow I got connected with you with Rasslin Radio.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how that connection happened. Either, but I had took tapes because I was on Rasslin Radio. And I took tapes to Lawler so Lawler could listen to it.
Yeah.
And because y'all wanted him, and y'all had this big elaborate plan of coming to Memphis and blah blah blah, and you wanted the King to be part of it.
Well, he
So
was.
I don't. Yeah, I know, but I don't know how. I
Well,
can't
we
remember.
had when we met him. Okay, when everything started, he and I had this like little romance on the radio, and we promoted a lot of stuff because he and Tommy Rich and all, they worked for us at the time. So I was talking to them about how Tommy Rich was at my house. I was cutting his hair, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden Jerry comes on. He's like, what do you mean you were cutting Tommy Rich's hair at your house? What was he doing at your house? And then we went into this big thing. And, people used to actually call in from different parts of the country when they knew we were on and stay on hold the whole time so they could hear the radio show.
Oh yeah, well I called in and we did, especially when y'all were getting close to the trip.
Yeah,
I would do. I think every week where I would say what happened on Memphis Wrestling, and your idea was, hey, we got to get these people excited about Memphis Wrestling because that's where we're going.
exactly.
And they did. We had VHSs and stuff, but it was more. And I talked to a lot of the wrestlers about this. They had no idea what we were doing. It was an underground. We were trading tapes.
Yep.
I remember the story, Lance Russell.
Right.
When he went to WCW, people kept coming up to him and saying, "Hey, we love you on Memphis Wrestling." He's like, "I'm in New Jersey. How did you want? How did
It's
you?"
true.
We traded tapes. Well, we had this whole, and the newsletters were funny because some of the guys they were so busy they had no idea. I remember there was a team, the Nightmares. And the insiders back then had voted them the #1 tag team at the time, and it just shocked me because I was a fan, but they weren't being pushed or anything. It was all about work rate, and I was just like,
right.
I mentioned it to one of the Nightmares later on in life, and he was like, "Dude, we had no idea y'all were reading it," and the reason they read the sheets.
Right.
Was to see what other areas were doing.
Exactly.
So what's Portland drawing? They didn't even care about the gossip. They cared about how much people were making money wise.
Exactly.
So
Well, see, back then, it wasn't like it is now. Wrestling didn't go all over the world. It stayed in its own territory.
Yes,
That's why
you
people
stayed a
read
certain
those
amount
things.
of time. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then we also, Jeannie told you about our store that we had at the I-95 Marketplace. We played Memphis tapes all the time because, again, Paul, my ex-husband, was the one with all the connections, and he had so many tapes just shipped in from Memphis, from Mid-South, from Japan. We used to play New Japan all the time.
Right. Yeah, there's all kinds of
kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it was unusual what y'all were doing. There's other places that opened up. Russo had one, I believe. Him and John Arezzi had a store or something.
Right. Yeah.
But it was just such a, I don't know. Wrestling's always considered I guess counterculture is what I'm trying to say. That
Right.
the people around the business, there's a term carny. We're carny people. We work everybody during everything. I don't bullshit people, and I don't like to be bullshit. So
Exactly.
it's just one of those things that I never got that. But I can turn it on if you need me to. You need me to be part of
Exactly.
a crowd, I can still do that.
Yep, exactly.
But see, I just lost my train of thought.
Not to cut you off, but I wanted to ask Jeannie.
All right, go ahead.
Who would you like to see on the podcast?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Another man that I know you're still friends with, who is really, really great. Davey O'Hannon.
Oh, Davey O'Hannon.
Davey O'Hannon. Tom Brandy, who I love.
Tom Brandy. Yeah, Davey O'Hannon. He's going to be on too.
Yeah, I would love to see, Frank Chili. I would love to see, he wasn't a wrestler, but, Shane.
Yeah, we're going to try and get him on here too.
I'm going to try and see. The one question I had, because I can't remember, is with the Memphis thing, was that before or after the whole Jerry Lawler, Andy Kaufman?
I think that was after, wasn't it, Brian?
That we went down to Memphis.
Do you remember what year you went? Because
it had to be in between 85 and 89.
Yeah.
While you're looking for that, I'm going to tell everybody, I'm going to tell you another story, not now, another episode of when I was about 13, 14 years old. We were actually allowed to run up to the ring, and I was leaning on the ring watching a match like this and got hit in the head with a bottle. And that's what's wrong with me today.
Jeannie, I got the answer to this because I want to tell you something that Lawler did at that convention that still shocks me to the day, because kayfabe was so strong. Everybody was talking about Kaufman and Lawler. It was in 82. It was after it. And Lawler told us in that group, in that small group, he confessed that it was a work.
Yeah.
He told us it was. No one knew that.
That was unheard of back then. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
We have an episode of Cassette Wrestling News that has one of the Nightmares, Danny Davis, on it from 82, I think. And he's talking about the angle where Lawler gets run over by a car, and he tells the whole in-depth story behind the scenes, and you're like, wait, you weren't supposed to be talking about that stuff back then. But he told us, and I remember people saying, I remember when David Letterman came out and told everyone it was a work, and I was like, we knew that from Rasslin Radio for years. We knew that. So.
Yep. Well, let me tell you, you're going to know a lot more stuff from Carmela's Rasslin Radio Relived. So everybody come back again. We're going to have it. Brian, am I correct in saying that they're going to be able to listen to this on their platforms that they normally?
All the, you said it right, but all the podcast catchers, I don't know if it automatically goes up to iTunes, but we're going to fix that. Any other kind of we put it on SoundCloud, and boom, it shoots to all the podcast people. Just search for Rasslin Radio Relived. That's what it is. Triple R. Look.
Or do they have to say Carmela's Rasslin Radio Relived?
No, you can
Radio?
do that. Yeah, okay. And you can search it for SoundCloud's really good if you just want to listen to it on SoundCloud app. Okay. You can find it on their app. And then we're trying to get it all on all the platforms. You can also listen to, I talked a lot about my podcast, but we're going to put it on, say we release it today, then midweek you'll hear it on if you're listening to it on my feed right now, it's midweek, and we recorded this on a Saturday afternoon, but you'll hear it first right there on her feed. And then if you got questions, you can send them to me. You can send them to her.
What's your address,
also,
Brian?
in the notes, you mentioned something about your email address. We're going to put that in there. It'll be in the notes for the podcast. And all you have to do is email questions. She would love to have an unlimited number of questions.
Oh yeah.
And just her and Jeannie sitting there answering the questions.
And we'll have a blast. And don't forget Brian. God bless him, entrepreneur extraordinaire. And he has done this all by himself. He told me everything he has learned alone, which is a lot more than I can say, because if it wasn't for him and Matt, I wouldn't be here today.
I got some helpers, but yeah, you have to, sometimes you have to, just grab the bull by the horn kind of thing and start learning why is this podcast being listened to more than my podcast,
Right.
And stuff like that, and just doing. I'm in the tech industry. So in the tech industry, you never stop learning. You're constantly doing, and my wife is a chiropractor. She's constantly doing extra classes to learn something. And that's the way I am. I have a list of things, and I'm always trying to teach myself a quicker, faster, more people to listen to.
Well, that's what I have
kind
to
of
start
thing.
doing now because I work where I work. I'm not a tech person. But then when I come home now, I'm going to start doing stuff. I'm going to start reading up, start learning, start, whatever. But we're going at this point, we're going to try and do one every single week, and we're going to do more if we can. In the meantime, Jeannie, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
It was a
Jeannie,
pleasure.
good seeing you. I can't
Yeah.
remember. I probably would remember you if I actually saw you, but
I'll
face in for a minute?
sneak in.
Well, when
but
we quit recording, I'll.
There she
Oh,
is.
hey,
That's my girl.
I remember now.
See?
Yeah.
That wasn't so hard, was it? They could see me. They could see you.
Oh,
Trust
gee,
me.
don't. It was the worst
She's
thing for me to
beautiful.
be on cam. It took me forever to do video, and now it's just there's no other way to do it. All right, we got to cut this off so you can.
We'll talk to you later. Carmela, it's 316 Carmela at gmail.com. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Keep listening and write to us. Rasslin Radio, signing off.